For some reason, I was one of the 1,000 or so players that was given early access to Season 2 of Marvel Rivals, and with this, I was of course able to play Emma Frost early, so I figured it'd be best for me to give you an early guide on how to be the best with her, so that when you get your hands on her, wow, I should word that better, so that when you get a chance to play her, you'll start off from a much better place overall. Because I believe that when Emma Frost actually hits the game, when it actually is released to the full player base, she is absolutely going to shake up the meta. Right now, I would put her as one of the best tanks currently available. Not only does she have an amazing shield, but she also has some of the highest burst damage out of almost every tank in the entire game. She is extremely strong, especially when a team plays around her, so we're also going to cover some of her best team compositions. I want to talk about some of the basic stuff, as well as I want to include some of the combos that you can see in order to make her more effective. Like I mentioned, this is early access, so understand that this is possible subject to change. Let's get into this here. Her basic damage is with her beam. Her beam is a wind-up attack that takes about 37 to kill on 250 HP targets, which means that her beam's clocking in at about 7 damage per hit. Interesting with her beam is that it winds up its basic damage the longer you keep it held. It's worth noting that when it's at maximum, the beam goes from that 7-ish damage to about 10-ish to 11-ish. When testing this against a Thor when it was fully spun up in that 100%, the damage went from requiring basically the entire magazine to only requiring about 40, which according to my math puts this at about a 55 to 60% increase in damage overall. This beam has a 15-meter radius, it has a 15-meter range, and it has no noticeable damage drop off. So if you're within the range of the 15 meters, it's going to deal its full damage. Of course, this is hit scan as well, so you don't need to worry about any sort of leading. The very first thing you're going to learn about her character is that she is meant to swap off and on her diamond form. Her diamond form actually keeps your beam's increased damage, which means that if you hold your damage on a target, which can wind up on Loki clones and Groot's walls and such, you can then swap over to the diamond form when you need to brawl with characters, and then swap back, and whatever your beam's increased damage was at is where it'll keep it. That's a very good, very early flow to how her kit is played, where you'll see a lot of success. Her primary shielding ability is the Mind's Aegis. This is a projected wall that has 500 HP that will travel within the line of sight of her wherever she's looking for 40 meters. Something that you can keep in mind is that you can interrupt this line of sight and immediately bring it back to you, and then once you get a sight of something further again, it'll travel back out, like I said, to about 40 meters. It takes 4 seconds to deploy and to pull back before you can fire it again, and something that's worth noting is that this wall doesn't actually have a cooldown if it's broken, meaning that if it happens to get smashed, if the enemies deal too much damage to it, it's still just going to replenish itself passively when it's not out, as if it was never broken, meaning it's quite easy to keep the shield up even if a little bit over time. I strongly recommend putting this wall to separate out the DPS characters from their supports, as the support's damage, if it's a longer range, if it's a line of sight check, will go right into the wall. Think something like Loki trying to heal a target. Suddenly hitting that wall can be a great way to suddenly turn off the enemy team's healing. Like I mentioned, it refills over time, and it's also important to note that this shape is shape accurate, which means that it can get a little bit awkward to actually block things, as there's only about a tiny little square that's a consistent area where it can actually block. Anything underneath the edges of the diamond will still slip through, which is good to know if you're fighting against her, that you can still get that damage around. Next is her Psychic Spear, and this Psychic Spear is where the vast majority of her combos and damage will come from. This is a 5-second cooldown, and it has 20 meters. Notice how the Psychic Spear has more range than her basic damage, which means that you can reach out and touch targets, and then pull the Psychic Spear close and deal damage to the Psychic Spear when you actually don't have line of sight or within range of your basic attack, when your basic beam. While the target is linked up, they have a 15-meter radius of which they will continue to be affected by it. If they escape that 15-meter radius, the Psychic Spear will disappear. The Psychic Spear will pull towards you a maximum of about 10 meters, although in practice, this seems to be about whatever half the distance is between you and the target is, which is pretty darn helpful. It'll stay out about 5 seconds as well. This is a projectile, but it's a very fast projectile, and the projectile itself deals a nominal amount of damage, maybe 5 to 10 damage, and it takes about 20-ish shots on the Psychic Spear in order to kill it. Whenever the spear is damaged, or whenever it is broken, especially when it's broken, it will deal damage to the target. If you can break the spear, it deals an additional about 60 or so damage, so it's highly encouraged that you not only get the spear on the target just so it makes it easier for aiming, but also so that you can get it back to the target for that shatter. It's worth noting that while the beam itself can't pierce through targets, it can pierce through the Psychic Spear, which allows you to effectively deal double damage to targets while you're shooting at it, which is fantastic for securing kills. And if If you can manage this, yeah, it's pretty much guaranteed. Her beam does not deal critical damage, and this is sort of her way of doing it. This does seem to break a bit faster on lower HP, as it seems to be taking roughly a percentage of the overall health that you can deal damage to them. So it's worth noting that if you do it on a smaller or a lower HP target, it will take significantly less effort in order to shatter it. It takes about 2 spears to fully kill a target, so it's much more encouraged for you to do more with it, which of course we will talk about here very, very soon. Okay, now let's talk about her diamond form. When she's in her diamond form, it takes 10 hits to kill on tanks and about 5 hits to kill on squishies, which clocks her damage in at about 60 to 65-ish. Overall, it has an 8-second duration and a 15-second cooldown, and when she's in this form, she has a 33-ish% damage reduction, which is pretty good. She also will not take stuns while she's in this form, meaning anything that could sleep her, pull her, push her, knock her back, all of that will not affect her, which is extremely useful for this mode, as when she's in this mode, she's basically in Brawl Tank mode. She goes from Anchor Tank to Brawl Tank within this. In her diamond form, she has 2 abilities, both of which you're not going to get a lot of, so it's good to use these sparingly. The very first ability is the one that a lot of people are noticing, which is her Carbon Crush. This is her command grab, her side B, her Ganon side B, her stun. What this does is it will lunge you forward about 5 meters, and it has a 5-second cooldown, which means that you will get, at most, if you are absolutely perfect, 2 of these grabs. The grab itself is small in terms of its damage, maybe 5 to 10 damage overall, and it will always cross you up no matter which direction you're facing. So if you're facing north, the target will end up behind you to the south, west to east to west, etc. This also is a stun, which means it can interrupt enemy ults, and it can interrupt other invulnerable or impervious abilities, so this can serve as a great way to shut down enemies that are immediately on top of you. But this ability by itself is rather worthless outside of this simply its stun. Much better in this form is her Crystal Kick, which deals 50 damage and has a roughly 5-meter range and has a 2-second cooldown. Between the Carbon Crush and the Crystal Kick, you're going to get 5 total, 2 Carbon Crushes and 3 Crystal Kicks, again, if you are absolutely frame perfect. The knockback itself is about 10 meters, and if you're able to get a target to knock into walls, you get a massive bit of bonus damage, about 100 damage total, which is literally double the base damage, which means between the kick and the knock into a wall, it's 150 damage, halving most of the squishy's health. In fact, all of the squishy's health, leaving most of them 100 or so health remaining. It's very, very powerful. So between the 2 of these, 1 kick into a wall plus 1 punch leaves a target with basically no health, meaning that 2 punches and 1 kick into a wall is guaranteed kill on practically all squishy targets, save for healing or damage resistances or targets that have a slightly increased HP pool from overshields or whatnot. Lastly is her ultimate, Sonic Seduction. This is a low damage ultimate. This is not meant to be something that is meant to finish off kills. It at total will deal about 475 damage, and it does seem to have some form of damage drop off. The damage drop off is also focused in a cone, which means whoever's in the center of the cone will take more damage, whoever's on the sides will take generally a little bit less, but it's still roughly about the same, maybe 300 damage instead of the 475. The range on this is significantly larger than her Psychic Beam of about 30 meters, and it does indeed work with the Sonic Spear, although you won't get the bonus Seduction. That Seduction causes targets whenever they're within it for about 2 seconds to slowly walk towards the Emma Frost. Once they've been seduced, it takes about 1.5 seconds for it to wear off, at which point they will hopefully be closer to you for you to finish them up. This ultimate has the unique ability of stunning or suppressing or stopping all types of ults that are not CC resistant, that are not crowd control resistant, meaning if their health bar doesn't turn yellow, it's possible to interrupt them. Even if they're in the middle of starting their ult, it's possible to interrupt them. Also, something worth noting is any sort of ult that is some form of transformation. For example, the Captain America's ultimate, which gives him the bonus health, it will still persist. This also includes Mantis, so it's best used on mostly DPS ults that have a bit of a cast time, as you can directly interrupt them. In fact, I had a small opportunity to experience this firsthand, where a Psylocke tried to pop her ult and I just happened to be popping at roughly the same time. I caught the Psylocke before she went intangible, and I was actually able to shut it down and stop it, completely removing her ult, which is an incredible burst of value. This does have a windup, so planning around that can be extremely challenging, but it's nevertheless something worth keeping in mind. In particular, this will do a really good job of messing with Bucky, as Bucky wants to use his ults multiple times over, so once you hear him pop Armed and Dangerous, this is perhaps the perfect counter to it. Besides that windup where you're vulnerable for 1 second, once the ult has started, you cannot be stunned just like you are within your diamond form. Okay, now that we've gotten through the basics, let's talk about some combos. Here are some personal combos starting from easy to hard that will help you get a lot better at her. For the easiest combo in the game, and this is the one that you're going to be relying on the most, is her Sonic Spear into her basic shot. This deals about 200 damage, which is easy for follow-up, as you'll have plenty of ammo left over to finish up on targets. Assuming the target isn't zipping around too quickly and escaping from the Sonic Spear's range, this is a great way to secure most of your kills. Just understand that your Sonic Spear does have that little 6-second cooldown or so. Next combo is for when she's in her diamond form, so pop diamond form, simply apply the grab and then kick for about 150 damage to 200 damage, depending on how many melees you follow up. The shield can be interwoven into any of these, being that it has practically no animation, so it's helpful to throw this down in between everything else you're doing just to simply help you stay alive. On to the medium difficulty combos, starting off with using the Sonic Spear, swapping into the diamond form, and then applying the melee. Something I need to mention earlier is that the Sonic Spear and her Shield of Aegis is not accessible when she's in diamond form. Once you're in that diamond form, that's it, unless you cancel it. So you're going to need to get the spear out before you swap over, as it will persist even if you're in that diamond form before you actually engage with your combo. This, again, will be about 200 damage, but being that you'll be within close range to the target, it's very easy to follow up with additional melees. The hardest combo to pull off, and the combo that will deal the absolute most damage, is a similar version of what we just saw. Use your Sonic Spear, swap into diamond form, apply a melee, go for a grab, kick them into a wall, and then continue to apply damage. If you can hit both the Sonic Spear and the target with your melees and as well as your kick, it'll be possible to get this combo up to 600-ish damage. It's just shy of being able to kill Thor, which means that this is maybe 590 damage. It's an extremely high amount of damage. Nothing will survive this. Introduce a wall into the rest of the team so that they can't be healed, your target can't be healed, and this is a practically touch of death combo even on a tank. This is where the vast majority of her power is going to come from when you're just doing solo stuff. You're not actually with a team. But I do want to talk about what you can do as a team, because while there are the obvious team-ups with like Magneto and Psylocke, who have baked-in team-ups in the game with her, there are other characters that I would strongly advise playing with if you see them picked. First off is Groot. Groot's walls operate as a normal wall for the Emma Frost, which is excellent for her, as obviously you can get those touch of death combos a little bit easier. Thor, another brawl tank, also operates very well with this, as he can sort of hijack your grab into a better kidnapping for the rest of the team. Penny with her mines can also deal a lot of damage, as you can forcefully push enemies back into the rest of the group where Penny can be waiting. And then a similar thing can happen with a Thing, where he can just be ready to catch them with hands. Magic, Squirrel Girl, Bucky, Namor, Wolverine, Iron Fist have extremely high damage within close range, where the Emma Frost can easily set them up using her shield in order to close gap in order to get in. In particular, I recommend Magic and Bucky, as both of them have incredibly good damage or hooks of their own in order to get enemies down. And as for supports, Loki, Cloak and Dagger, Adam Warlock, and Invisible Woman. Loki and Invisible Woman in particular can do really good damage stack setup combos to basically guarantee kills on targets that you end up pulling in. So let's talk about the basic flow of what you want to do with her. First and foremost, you want to just generally keep your primary at range, of course, introducing shields to shield off mostly the enemy's supports, or using them within close range to keep yourself alive from sudden bursts of damage. Because the shield comes out very quickly, it's very easy to predict an enemy about to do something that's high damage to you, such as something like a shotgun or maybe Bucky's arm or whatnot, and immediately turn it off so that you can survive a lot more and prevent anything that might stun you and such. This you're going to do to immediate threats, and you're going to try to introduce your Sonic Spear as often as possible as a means of introducing bigger burst damage, as her damage by itself is pretty poor, but with the Sonic Spear, it's much better. So you're going to use this basically as soon as it comes off a cooldown. Just remember that it does have a slight projectile travel time, which on faster moving targets can be a little bit trickier. Try to use this to close the gap using your shield to move up where you can, helping your tank's shield game to again close that gap, and then using your damage combos with your diamond form as soon as you get within close quarters. Grabs, kicks into walls, follow-ups with melee are pretty much guaranteed kills on most of the targets in the game. From there, you use your ult mostly to set up other steamrolls, coordinate with your team when you are ready to push in, basically sort of like a support ult, how you might use like maybe Cloak and Dagger or Mantis of the sort. or using it, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky, using it to cancel out other ultimates. Just remember that once you do pop it, you will be vulnerable for a brief period of time, in which you will be doing practically nothing before you actually start projecting your field. You will need to keep the field on the target if you want them to stay suppressed. And again, this is extremely useful against enemies that do not have a crowd control resistant ultimate. Again, Bucky gets absolutely shut down by this, but any other ultimates that aren't a transformation that follow this rule works terrifically as well. And that is Emma Frost. If you enjoyed this type of guide content, let me know with either a like or a sub. Hope to catch you guys in the next video. Bless your faces, and deuces.